It's Ryan Seacrest here. People always say it's good to unwind, but that's easier said than done. The exception, Chumba Casino. They actually make it easier done than said, or at least the same. Chumba Casino is an online social casino with hundreds of casino-style games like slots and blackjack. Play for fun. Play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sign up now and collect your free welcome bonus at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 153 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers, and the start of our 14th year. Woo! I'm your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Inc. Studios, Andrew Jean-Claude Van Dipshit Zumwalt.
Son of a bitch, that was my freaking quote.
That's why I did it first. I had to do it first.
Van Dipshit just did us, sweetie. Oh my God. You know what? Mike,
yes.
Your Wi-Fi sucks dick, damn it.
Second, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom, roll up your sleeves, prepare the dynamite haggis.
Christmas dies tonight.
Third, writer, actor, and director, Kyle, I know you're an idiot, but don't be an idiot out loud. Fine.
Oh, that hurts. Look, I usually start this with a witty comment, but I really need your guys' help. I am afraid I'm not going to get any presents this year. So if you would line up and spank my bare bottom with a switch, I think that would really help my case. It's nothing weird. I just want presents.
Okay.
Mike, can you go first?
Sure.
Okay, I don't want you guys to change anything that we do, but I do want to point out that it was 2 weeks ago that my mom said to me, "You have a podcast?" So this might be the first one she ever listened to.
Welcome, Tom's mom.
I want to thank Kyle and welcome, Mom.
Well, in that spirit, Tom, you can go last.
It's okay.
It's not awkward. Your mom can leave.
She's probably turned it off at this point.
That can be our
I'm pretty sure it's turned off.
Our Cinesmack Christmas card is all of us spanking Kyle. Fourth, filmmaker and owner.
Just everybody lined up?
Yes. Fourth,
Tom's
filmmaker
at the back with a flamethrower.
And owner of One Gino Short Productions, Gabriel. Nothing in here for you, fuzz face, Rowald.
Ho, ho, holy shit. It's another episode of Cinesmack.
Very nice.
Hey!
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, 14th year. It's a lot of movies. I was going to do the math earlier, but I forgot. So it's over 153 movies.
Yeah, some fuzzy math in there, too, because didn't we do, like, 3 ways?
Tom's mom, we're talking about watching three movies.
Three movies. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, we did once. We did a 3-way match, and then I believe there was also an episode that we did not record because I was unavailable. I was on a film shoot.
I see.
Yep.
So it kind of evens out.
It does, kind of.
Kind of.
We're off by one movie, I think.
Yeah.
Is the problem. And we've had one repeat. We took one movie and did it again against something else. And it was from
National Lampoon.
Yeah, it's National Lampoon because it went up against Christmas Story And
It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah.
And It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah. It's kind of
So we've done an
unfair
even number
match.
of movies then. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should do a month where we do 2 Cinesmacks.
Okay.
Catch up. Well, nobody wants to do that, so...
Hey, Kat, you can be an idiot, but don't be an idiot out loud.
Well, screw me for
Did that
enjoying
become
this.
a rule?
We wouldn't have much of a show.
Right for a while. Goodbye.
All right, let's poke the monkey. Find out what we're discussing this month.
Ladies and gentlemen, holiday heisters and excavating elves, welcome to the main event. Tonight, 2 Christmas comedies struggle for seasonal supremacy. Which will jingle all the way, and which will carry home a lump of coal. In the first quarter, from 2022, written by Pat Casey and Josh Miller, directed by Tommy Wirkola, starring Beverly D'Angelo, John Leguizamo, and David Harbour. Violent Night. In the second quarter from 2010, written and directed by Yalmari Helander, starring Tommy Coppola, Yorma Tomila, and Ani Tomila. Rare Exports.
I love genre bending films. Like both of these, I feel are very, they're great in that category. And I was surprised by both of them. I will say this, I really enjoyed Violent Night a little too much. Just all the little hints of other films that they were kind of paying homage to. But you're not here to listen to me. You're here to listen to the other guys. So
Damn straight.
Let's go ahead and start it off with our first round, which is writing.
All right. So I think both of these movies kind of, I mean, they obviously take the Santa Claus lore and kind of twist it. And I think, and we did Krampus a couple of years ago, and there's a very scary side of the history of Santa Claus and the horrible things that happened to him. And both these movies, obviously Rare Exports dives into it a bit more, but there are parts of that dark lore in Violent Night. It's funny because I was watching Rare Exports, and I don't know why, but I guess I had it in my mind that it was like part comedy, and I kept kind of waiting for the comedy to kick in. It never did. So when watching it, it kind of was a little bit more of a slow burn, and it felt a lot longer than the 88 minutes that it runs. But I think they did. They pulled a pretty decent movie out of this story of this tiny Finnish village and Santa Claus buried under a mountain. Violent Night was very surprising. I saw it in the theater last year, and then I watched it again yesterday, and it's just such a blast, and it's so much fun. And one of the things I noticed when I was watching it is that they take the things that need to be explained, because when you talk about Santa Claus, there's this magic that comes along with him, and then there's these powers, and this was something else that they dealt with in Fat Man that we put up against Krampus. But when you put Santa Claus in your movie, is he invincible? What kind of superpowers does he have? And you have to establish all of that. And Violent Night does a really great job of parsing apart the stuff that we need to know, and the stuff that you can easily shrug off. And David Harbour's Santa, he kind of, he's like, he goes, it's magic. I don't really even, like, he doesn't even really know why or how it works. And it gets a pass, and it's amazing because any other movie, I don't really know that we would let that go. But for some reason, for me anyway, I feel like all of that kind of brushing it away with magic works in this movie. But then to also bring in, the St. Nicholas history, and that he was actually this warrior that wielded this giant sledgehammer, and that's how he's able to kick ass, rather than just have a Santa Claus that goes around kicking people's ass. We're like, no, he actually used to be a very violent man, and that's where he's able to get this from. I think that's what takes Violent Night from a good film to a great film, is that there's a reason for some of these things are happening. And there's obviously some suspension of disbelief, because it's obviously a movie about Santa Claus, et cetera. But yeah, if you go in with the right frame of mind, you really, like Mike said, just have an absolutely great time. And the last thing I'll say is that we opened the show with quotes, and I opened IMDb and I'm flipping through funny quotes to say at the start of the show, and it occurred to me how horrible this stuff looked on paper. It was just just reading the lines on the screen. I'm surprised the movie got made, quite honestly, because the lines come off incredibly corny and cheesy. But I think the reason the movie works is what we're going to talk about in the next two rounds. So I'll hold on to that.
Yeah, Violent Night, I feel like the two movies maybe it draws some of the most inspiration from are Die Hard and Bad Santa, which I think are the reasons that movie's made, right? Because you can do those two things and you have a very charismatic actor in David Harbour pulling the strings. I will say the story is, it's light. The plot, I guess, what you would call it, is really moving things along. The actual story of it is a little light on substance. It's your average heist movie. But the Santa Claus aspect, and I think the performances, which we'll get to later, of course, elevate it to something else. It could have been very bad. But I like the idea of the story, and like Mike, I like things that transcend genre a bit. I like things that play with it and become something new or original, maybe something we've never seen before. There have been other Santa Claus horror movies, I guess. Not a ton of Santa Claus action movies. But I think this one is successful. It has a tone of its own. It's very dark and gory. I kind of forgot how gory it was till they immediately shoot the really nice guy at the front desk in the head. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot this movie's pretty kind of brutal, actually. I agree with you. I love the backstory. And for stuff that's like supernatural or magic, what's really important to me is that it works in your world and it makes sense. You don't have to explain too much of it. And I think if they would have tried to explain it, the movie would have been worse for it. So it's good that they leave it unsaid. And like David Harbour is a good enough actor to pull off the I don't really know how it works. And you don't feel like you're cheated. Like, I actually think it's much better to not know. Rare exports, I think, is a really good idea for a movie written down on a napkin. I think the problem is, in a lot of ways, they forgot to finish those ideas. And there wasn't a lot more to the film than its main conceit, and not a lot of other stuff happened. And I think for such a thin premise of a movie, even though the movie is only an hour and 22 minutes long, it felt as long as Violent Night to me. I think part of that is there just being a lack of stuff going on in the movie, and that really hurts your engagement, because you can only stare at a kid looking quizzically at something for so long, or a dad looking scared or angry for so long over and over again before you're like, okay, we get it. What else do you have? And the answer really is not much, except for making back the money from their reindeer slaughter by selling things into slavery, which is, a hard pill to swallow. For a 2010 movie, I mean, you feel like this movie knows better than that. We don't know what the story is with these guys, but now they are doomed to an eternity of being commodified and sold to places like, I think Zambia, I think I saw at the end, or somewhere like that. Zanzibar. Yeah, that's great for a creature of eternal winter to be sent off to a desert. Anyways, I'm just kind of picking shit. I think that could have been better handled. The ending, I think there should have been more meat on the bones of what the struggle was for the family. It's not super evident, other than like, we were going to run a bunch of reindeer into this pen, and now we're going to have to file bankruptcy because my kid cut a hole in a fence. I'm like, that's kind of thin. You could have fleshed that out more. The dialogue is very bare bones. There's nothing incredibly spectacular. The characters are very tropey. I do always find it interesting, though, to see movies from other cultures because their tropes are different than ours, so that's interesting. But, it's a cool idea for a short film. There's just not enough there to make it a feature-length film. And I think some of the decisions they made, they should have thought a little harder on them, added a little bit more.
Yeah, I guess we've kind of extended Halloween into the Christmas holiday season, and it's kind of fun to do, slightly different types of films for the holidays, and do these kind of Christmas horror films. Yeah, I enjoyed both of them actually quite a bit, and I think they're both very creative ideas. And Violent Night, I felt like they didn't. Tom said something about it when you read the dialogue on the page. It's like it's a wonder it ever got made. I don't think that's why they made it, because I think they made it. They made it because it's Santa Claus kicking ass. It's fight scenes. It's John Wick in a Santa outfit. And so that's why it got made. and that's the most fun to me in it. There's some good lines, but I feel like they weren't. Sometimes it was like, oh, that was a good line, but it could have been a great line. And I think they left a little bit on the table with some of the possible dialogue there. But it was a really entertaining idea, a really entertaining concept, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. And I've been wanting to see Rare Exports for a long time because the concept, again, I think is a really great concept. But I think I'm a little bit with Kyle too, in that it's not fully fleshed out. It's not a complete story. And I think there was a lot left on the table there too. There was a lot more they could have done with that story. And I don't know if this falls into the writing category or not, but I think it has to, because it's a choice they made early on. We never really get a reveal of this demonic, frightening Santa Claus, and I think that's what everybody is waiting for. When we get kind of just a glimpse of the Santa Claus encased in ice and thawing out, and it looks humongous, and it has these giant horns and that kind of stuff. It's like, I think we're all waiting for the moment that this thing emerges and we want to see this. And I think that's something you could make an argument that's actually maybe better, but there's also a part of me that's like, I think that's what we want. I think as viewers, that's what we want to see. We're building up this whole Santa Claus thing, and we think that this elf is actually Santa Claus until late in the movie. And then when we realize it's not, it's like, okay, oh my goodness, what is this Santa Claus going to be like? And we never get it. And maybe that's less writing. Maybe it's more budget related. That they're like, we can't possibly do this. We can't possibly show it on the budget that we've got. But I felt like that was a little bit disappointing. And the ending was a little weird. It was weird to me that the Rare Exports thing ended up, I didn't know where the name came from exactly, but I guess I had an assumption that was different than what it ended up being. That they end up exporting these elves as Santa Clauses.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange idea for an ending. Did we lose Gabe there?
I think I hit a button. Yeah, I think I hit a button on. I hit a button on my keyboard and it muted me, I guess. But
Oh no!
I was done anyway.
Yeah. Do you think that if you introduce the idea that there is a crazy giant rampaging evil Santa Claus and you don't show him, that's really like a Chekhov's gun. You're really breaking Chekhov's gun there. You're telling me there's this really cool thing you're going to show me at some point, and then you never show it to me. Yeah, that's and I think it largely is budgetary reasons, because you see it in other parts of the movie too, where most of the scary attacks from Santa's helper are really just done off camera and shown by like throwing helmets in frame,
Right.
you know, and stuff like that. So it's just the ultimate low budget way to do it.
Right.
But yeah, they went all that way to create this giant horned CGI creature. Just show them rampage for a little bit, you know, something.
Yeah, even if it's just for a moment, you know. But we never really get that satisfaction, and I found that a little bit disappointing.
I mean, that's part of just doing a low budget movie. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give them credit for coming up with creative ways to tell the story, and keep the budget down, but keep the story going. That's a preference thing, but I think with the budget they had, they did a pretty decent job with it.
Yeah, I agree as well.
So I want to point out something that maybe we're missing in this whole thing, because I don't think in Rare Exports that was actually Santa Claus. He is more depicted as Krampus, which, ironically enough, the night that we're actually recording this right now, last night was Krampus Nacht, which is when the evil Krampus goes around and actually takes children and will whip them when they've been naughty, and has been known to go around during when Santa's delivering presents and picks up the presents and replaces them with coal after Santa drops off the presents. And so I thought that it was more of a story of Krampus was actually caught and was controlling all of these things. And at the very end, they were reteaching them because they had been controlled by this to do all this evil. And they have now taught all of these the elves to become good, because they had been being forced to be evil their entire lives. Because the depiction of Krampus is the big horns and the long tongue and the furry. And so I guess I interpreted this totally different, that wasn't even Santa. Now I will have to agree with the fact that there was a giant buildup for very nothing. Like, there was no payoff. And that's what I really didn't like about that part of it. And I also, it just was kind of like, I think Kyle said it would have made a better short. Violent Night, we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, I guess I saw the story of Rare Exports to be more about Krampus than it was actually about Santa. But maybe I misinterpreted it too. So
it's interesting. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like some movies just kind of see him as one and the same. Like, Krampus is like an evil Santa.
Yeah, but Krampus is actually a different being.
I know that, and you know that, but I'm just for the purpose of the show, of the movie.
Yeah,
I think. I think that was the decision they made.
All right, boys, let's put it to a vote. We'll start it off with Tom. Tom's.
I'm here. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, Violent Night.
Okay. Kyle?
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Violent Night.
Gabe?
I think they were both really fun and creative ideas, but I'm going to go with Violent Night as well.
All right. And Andrew.
I thought Rare Exports was terrible, and so I'm giving it to Violent Night.
All right. In one of many references to Die Hard and Violent Night, one character is named Thorpe. The book on which Die Hard is based, Nothing Lasts Forever, was written by Roderick Thorpe. Brian Green's passport number in Rare Exports is 314-159-265. Do you guys know what number that is?
Is that pi?
That is.
Pi.
It's the first several digits of pi. All right. Let's move on to our second round, which is acting.
Acting, my favorite and my strong point, as you can tell. Acting. Okay, so let's start with Rare Exports. I don't know much about the well of talent you draw from in like kind of Finnish independent film or Finnish movies, but some of the characters I think had a lot of personality and brought some life to the movie. I especially liked I'm going to butcher these names, so let's get out of the way. Like Peppa Parin or whatever his name was, the guy with the sunglasses. And then you, of course, have like the angry trope guy, and you have like sad dad, who's also mean to his kids sometimes. And I mean, I thought they were all serviceable in ways. There's not a big cast in the movie at all. I don't know what it is about the Finnish hairstyle on children where the bangs cover the ears, but it really bothered me. I'm just like, cut those sideburns. But like it had such an 80s trope, American trope with the teenagers, the kids. Like you had the one bully kid with a cool earring. And I'm like, man, you are 40 years out of place in this movie. And then the main kid, Pitari, who I think if you're going to focus your movie on kid actors, they got to be really good. Otherwise, it can be very distracting. And they spent a lot of time with that kid, and I just don't feel like his performance is very strong. And I don't want to, like come down on him. He's a young kid doing a movie. I don't know how much experience he has, but if you're going to focus on him all the time, it just wasn't up to snuff for like carrying a movie for me. And part of that is what he's being given to do. Just he's staring a lot. I mean, we talked about it in Das Boot. Maybe it's a European film thing, just kind of looking at things and reacting. The problem is he just doesn't have the range of emotion to get across all the ideas or things they're trying to get. And so it just comes across pretty flat. And I think it really makes the movie feel long when you do that over and over and over again and you're not interested in the reactions. I think that really hurts it. So very mixed bag. Violent Night, I'm also going to say, is a mixed bag because I think there are a couple of the supporting characters that are pretty interesting and okay. I really did not care much for John Leguizamo. Just seemed miscast in that role.
Yeah, it's weird. That's weird to me.
Yeah,
I felt the same way. I've always liked John Leguizamo, but I didn't feel like his performance was.
Yeah, I didn't.
You guys are nuts. You guys are nuts. Look at my
job.
notes. It says Leguizamo ! Like
I mean, he was far better in the
blast.
Super Mario's Brother and The Pest. Like those are his magnum opuses, I think. So
he was so.
I like John Leguizamo.
Oh my God.
When I was, I think it must have been a teenager. I really loved his HBO stand-ups. I thought they were great. And I thought that really gave you an idea of who John Leguizamo was, and I really started to like him from that. And I don't think he's a bad actor at all. I think he can be a very good actor. He's good in The Menu. He's good in a lot of films, but I just don't feel like this was right for him. I think he did probably the best he could. I just don't know that it was for him, I guess. Walton Goggins.
Really?
Walton Goggins from Fat
I'm
Man
with him.
would have been way better in that role. Like if you could have switched those two guys. But I will say one thing though: the kid who plays Trudy is so likable and lovable, and you want to root for her. She's great. her parents are okay. Everybody else in the family is okay. Edie Patterson, who's an actress I love, who plays the shitty sister. She's in Righteous Gemstones. She is hilarious, but she's basically just playing Judy Gemstone in this movie. And then the kid Bertrude, I mean, his stuff is pretty cringy. Same with the husband, except for when he gets shot. I think that's great. I think it's a great twist to the movie. Beverly D'Angelo made me sad. I like Beverly D'Angelo a lot, but this is terrible Beverly D'Angelo. This is not Christmas Vacation Beverly D'Angelo. And but the A+ has to go to David Harbour, who carries the entire movie on his back with his charisma, his likability, just his acting chops. Like, he really is just a fantastic actor, and he put the whole film on his shoulders. I mean, it rests on his performance a lot. Not to say that he didn't get help from supporting cast, because I think some of them are very good. But yeah, David Harbour is a movie star in this movie. Like, he's doing what movie stars do in movies.
I'm gonna just disagree with you. I think John Leguizamo was fantastic, and I think he had a really good understanding of what he was supposed to do. And I mean, it's such a campy movie. Everything about it is so kind of silly and over the top. And John Leguizamo was just like there to carry water as the villain. And I give him credit for not considering himself above doing something like this. And I don't think this movie works if you get lesser actors in there. I think the reason it sucks on the page and it works in the movie is because the actors are able to deliver the lines. And I mean, and that's what the action movies are. Bad guys who spout stupid bullshit lines. I mean, like McBain on The Simpsons. I mean, that all comes from real action movies, and that's what this is a send up of, is Die Hard and Home Alone and The Ref and Bad Santa. And I thought Leguizamo was amazing. I loved it. Absolutely loved him. And I thought Beverly D'Angelo was as good as she could be in that role, but it just brings in just another tie to another Christmas movie.
Yeah,
so that makes it worth it for me.
I'm gonna agree 100%. I love John Leguizamo in this movie. It was fantastic. I thought he was fun.
He made me laugh out loud so many times.
Yeah, Mike's gonna have to be the tiebreaker on that one, because I thought it was not his best performance.
No, I didn't say it was his best performance, but I thought he was very comedic.
I expect better from him. I didn't think he was that good.
But I disagree 100%.
No,
I know you do, and I disagree 100% in the opposite direction. He just wasn't as good as I expected him to be, and I think that may go back to the previous category where some of his lines were not quite right. They were so close to being perfect lines, spoofs of like Christmas things, and they weren't quite right, and his delivery wasn't quite right. And I think he could have also brought in a little bit more of this pain that he felt. There was obviously this pain that he felt from his childhood, and it didn't come through very often. There were a few scenes where he was allowed to kind of like release that, and I think maybe it didn't come through often enough. And I don't know if that's acting or directing. Again, I like John Leguizamo, but he was not my favorite performance in this movie.
Let me ask you this. Because of the role that he was playing and because of what he was doing, if you were to recast that with someone who could say said cheesy lines and kind of just go with the flow, who you think would have done that better? Because I feel like the lines and the situation for the movie itself was set up to be cheesy and a little over the top, due to the
sure.
So who do you think could do that differently? Because for what he was doing, I thought he did a very good job. Is it his best role? Hell no. But did he do a good job with his goofiness and the weirdness of the film? Hell yeah.
I would need a little bit more lead time to actually think of an actor that would I can't just
that's fair. That's
pick
fair.
somebody
I just was curious.
on a split second, but I don't know. it was his performance that brought me out of it a bunch of times, which is really weird because I do like him and I think he's really good. But you know, I'm also with Kyle that David Harbour I thought he was fantastic.
John Leguizamo could have brought me out of the movie 1,000 times because Rare Exports I hated anyway, so it didn't really matter how bad it was.
Yeah, but that's not the point.
Well, I
mean,
know.
it's like if you only watched Violent Night, I mean, then what would you do?
There were definitely, I would say Kyle hit all of the cringy characters that were just kind of like, you know, they did some throwbacks to Christmas movies, and like the what was it, the social media child was just whatever. The daughter that basically was the diehard replacement with the walkie-talkie helping him out the whole time. You know, that I would say those two really made the movie, and those two were the ones that made this movie fun and held it all together, and everyone else was just kind of backup. So I mean, that's the part of it that I enjoyed out of the whole thing.
Yeah, I think since you brought up other actors, I think both leads from Justified would have been better. Walton Goggins, I think Timothy Olyphant would have been okay at it. And then if you want to move on to Gemstones, because I mentioned E.D. Patterson, Adam Devine would have been a good smug, shit-talking funny guy to run that group. And he could have made a bunch of short jokes because he's a tiny man.
I could totally see Adam Devine playing that role 100%. That would.
So yeah, I think there are other options, but I don't think you could get any. I don't know who you'd replace David Harbour with, right? Like I think he is such the heartbeat of this film.
Agree 100%.
Because he not only is super violent, he's also torn and tormented and caring, and has love and desire, but is also funny and admits his faults and his flaws and how he doesn't understand anything that's going on. And I think that makes for a really lovable character to root for. It's like this, I don't want to say sensitive, but he's like a self-aware badass.
And he just has this kind of, you know, kindred kind giant kind of feel to him, where he's just kind of like, but yet he has that love and that passion in him still. And that's what I think makes how he did that character makes it pay off, even in the parts where he's, you know, being the AKA John Wick. We compare John Wick so much because it's easy, but that's what it is. And he does it very well.
Makes me wonder how big David Harbour is, because this movie really makes him seem quite large and towering.
Well, and then I also wonder, you know, because you know, he looked like he was a little heavy, and I remember between two seasons of Stranger Things, like at the end of one season he was kind of heavy. And then at the beginning of the next season, after he had been in like the Russian prison camp or whatever, he had clearly lost a lot of weight. You know, personally, he had lost a lot of weight. He had gotten a lot more fit. And I wondered where, I don't know, I'd have to look it up. I didn't. I wondered where this film fit in that timeline.
He's 6'2", by the way.
I assume that movie was in between.
He's 6'2".
Yeah, he's pretty broad though. Like he looks like a big dude, and it's pretty imposing. So Violent Night was 2022, so it's probably filmed in 21. The behind the scenes shots show like people with COVID masks. So that would have put him like in, I don't know what season that would have been, because Stranger Things started in 2016.
Yeah, this was shot after the last episode that we've gotten from Stranger Things. Like this was shot entirely after the last we got from Stranger Things, because season 4 of Stranger Things was finished almost 2.5 years ago.
So he put on weight again for this role. Is that what you're saying? Because
That's
the
what,
last
that's what I
season
think.
of yeah, I was just kind of curious about that. Not that it matters at all in this particular category. It was just kind of interesting. But.
Yeah, David Harbour's great. We all like David Harbour. Yeah. I don't understand the John Leguizamo thing. I just don't get it because Walter Goggins. I don't think anybody would have done it better. I mean, the lines are what they are, but they're supposed to be cheesy and corny and Hans Grubery, and so I guess that's why I don't know. I think I'm not going to change your mind, but I thought Leguizamo was amazing and really funny, and I think he had a really good grasp of the character.
I agree.
Let's spend at least a little bit of time on Rare Exports. I thought their performances were understated. Kyle referred to it as just kind of staring off in the distance and that kind of thing, but they didn't have the same kinds of action or dialogue to deliver. And I thought a lot of their performances were suited to what they were doing, and they were understated. They didn't have to overdo, what they were trying to portray. And, some of it was just a look, and some of it was just maybe they would get kind of, teary-eyed or something like that. And I felt like overall that their performances were suitable. There's nothing really outstanding, I don't think. But I think a lot can be said about understated film acting. It doesn't have to be over the top. It doesn't have to be theatrical. You can portray a lot in small things in film.
There's that thing that happens in low budget films when you can tell the actors if the director's not very good and the actors don't really have an idea of what's going on, where it's just kind of, they kind of have like a blank expression and stuff, which is weird, really hard in this movie because that's the reaction of the people in the characters in the scene, that they're kind of being overwhelmed by these otherworldly events that are happening around them. And so I'm watching the actors in Rare Exports and I can't tell, are they on a set and they're just kind of like wondering if they're doing it right, or are they playing it that way because that's how the characters would? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's hard to know how good the directing is on that. Whether that's intentional or not. To me, it feels like they don't have enough to do and the director is not giving them enough specific direction or drawing out the emotion that they need.
Yeah.
There was too much sausage in that movie. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, you should have saved some money on those CGI dongs and gave us a rampaging Krampus.
Is that the sausage you were referring to?
That's what I'm thinking about. I don't remember them ever eating sausage.
Well, the main character was a butcher. I thought maybe he was referring to something else.
Do you remember? They eat gingerbread exclusively in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of gingerbread, that's for sure.
Made me really fucking hungry for gingerbread cookies.
Maybe that's a Finnish thing, too.
And gingerbread is not sausage.
All right.
Is that another euphemism? If you know what I mean, I'll take some gingerbread. Don't give me no sausage.
All right, let's put it to a vote. Kyle.
Gotta do Violent Night.
All right. Gabe?
In spite of John Leguizamo, I'll go with Violent Night.
That's right.
Andrew?
Not just because of John Leguizamo, but he definitely added a little bit to it. I'm going to say Violent Night.
Right.
And I just want to mention that Rare Exports sucked.
Wow. All right, tell him.
Jeez. Okay. Well, let's just go right to the end then.
Yeah, we could save some money.
Exclusively because of John Leguizamo, I'm going to give it to Violent Night.
Boy, there's some bullshit going on in here.
There you go.
So
hey,
what if hey Andrew, what if John Leguizamo was in Rare Exports?
If he was in Rare Exports,
I wouldn't cast him in it.
Nobody would understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need a translator.
In Rare Exports, Rano and Pietri are played by real-life father and son Jorma Tamila and Oni Tamila. Apart from the main cast in Violent Night, Almost all of the other actors, hench people, mercenaries, security, barkeeps, etc., appear in multiple other Christmas TV movies, many of them the same movies, with Sugar Plum, Stephanie Sy, and the UK Mall Santa, John B. Lowe, being tied for most with 16 Christmas credits each on their filmography as of 2023.
And here we are every year going, fuck, we don't have any more Christmas movies.
And they have 16 apiece. I imagine a lot of them are Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They need to show
movies that none of us would watch.
They need to show Violent Night on the Hallmark Channel.
On the Hallmark Channel. Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Kids, come in at starting.
All right. Let's move on to our third round, which is directing.
Well, both of these, I enjoyed both of these movies. I know Andrew thinks that Rare Exports sucks. He's made that abundantly clear.
I never said that.
Yeah, but I enjoyed them both, and I thought the premises were both fun and interesting. I think Rare Exports does suffer a little bit from the low budget issue. It obviously didn't have a huge budget, and I think the director did what he could with it. And I think we also need to kind of take into account what a foreign filmmaker is looking at, how a foreign filmmaker works as opposed to someone in the Hollywood system. We're so used to big budget Hollywood action movie type stuff that I think we get in a way ruined or spoiled by that, and we don't get to see different points of view from around the world as often. And so I think he did a fair job with the material that he had and the budget that he had. And I found it entertaining. It was slow at times. I found, some things kind of disappointing. Like I think Tom mentioned earlier, somebody mentioned earlier, the stuff, a lot of the action was actually happening off screen. We didn't really get to see things happen. And then I really felt it was like a mistake not to actually show Santa or Krampus or whoever at the very end, when we had an opportunity to actually see this beast that everyone was so fearful of. But at times there was really kind of very nice cinematography in it. The nighttime shots and some of the darker scenes were actually very nice. I liked the cinematography in it. And I think it also brought out, the landscapes brought out kind of this cold, lonely feeling of where they lived, and this isolation that they felt, and having to deal with this supernatural creature that got unearthed. So I thought there were a lot of actually nice things about Rare Exports. It's not Hollywood exciting, but I thought it was pretty well done. Violent Night, that's the opposite. We've got the Hollywood lighting. A lot of the cinematography was pretty good. I think a lot of the fight scenes and stuff were pretty well done. The action choreography and that kind of thing, and those scenes were pretty well done. I thought the lighting in the room where they were all being held hostage was a little flat. But when they were elsewhere, throughout the grounds or whatever, I thought the cinematography was really nice. My only complaint really was some of the pacing. There were times when I felt like it slowed down a little too much for too long. And, they went through these really kind of sappy, sentimental scenes, and we needed some of that, but I thought they went on a little too long, and I'm like, okay, when is Santa going to start kicking some ass again? this is supposed to be like kind of an action movie, isn't it? And so there were times when I felt like it slowed down. So I think it could have been a little bit shorter. But overall, I thought, the directing was competent. I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was clearly, derivative of a whole bunch of other films, but that's kind of what made it fun.
Yeah, because kind of, I mean, I love those movies where you get like a little pat on the back. The more pop culture going into a movie, Tarantino does that somewhat, but the more you've been exposed to it, the more you enjoy the movie, and you get the little nods and references, and the vault in the basement, and the guys are just taking hostages to get the money. And I have to agree with you. I thought the cinematography on Rare Exports was surprisingly good, and it's actually a very good looking film. And I have to give the director credit because, I mean, this is a movie that came out 13 years ago in Finland, and we're talking about it on our show. I mean, you've got to have some staying power to do that. I don't think we have any plans next year to do any 13-year-old Finnish films. So, I mean, there's obviously something about this movie that has captured people and gotten them to pay attention. And it's really impressive what the director was able to do with the budget and resources. And the fact that at Christmas the sun in Finland is up for all of 20 minutes a day, it's really remarkable. The film, I think, considering everything that they went through, that they got a cohesive story out, albeit it's a little bit on the slow side. But in terms of making something out of nothing, I mean, I think Rare Exports definitely has the edge there.
Yeah, kudos to finishing any movie. Like, I give anybody credit for doing that. Making movies is incredibly difficult. To do it on a small budget in such a remote location with such limited access to things, the cinematography is beautiful. There's a lot of built-in production value based on, where they're at. I would have liked to have seen more of like the blasting and digging and unearthing of things. Like, I felt like they could have woven that into the story a little bit more, and that would have helped. I think there was some real problems pulling out the right emotions to portray at times, and getting that, especially if you're going to be hanging on them for so long. Maybe shoot some coverage or some dog shots or other things like that to break that up, so it's not so, I don't know, just doesn't feel so long and drawn out. Some of the performances were surprisingly good, but again, very up and down. And I think the leads were not as strong as maybe they needed to be. But again, not every movie is going to have A-list actors, and they have to work with what they have. So for that, I'll give them credit for sure. And it's just like putting it together in a way that's cohesive front to back. And even if it's lacking or feeling slow, like, the story at least makes sense and gets from point A to B and has some interesting stops along the way. I just think, we've kind of highlighted some of the problems we've seen a lot, and they touch on lots of different things, not just the directing. But I do like the use of, like, getting a helicopter into a tight space. That always shows a little, like, production value and some work. And they did a lot of tricks. They did a lot of money-saving tricks, too, which I think are maybe more obvious to people who watch films more often and have done low-budget stuff. Like, you're trying to save money. And sometimes you need to put some of that budget on the screen, especially if you're going to you really want to make us scared of these things. We need to see them doing horrific things or attacking people. You can't just throw clothes into the frame and expect us to feel much for that. Like, kind of feels cheap. And this is not Alien. You can't, like, hide the whole time and we're scared of you. Like, you got to show us that if you're going to do that. It's just not that quality. But I think the directing and violent. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, you mentioned Alien. Even Alien has a reveal, though.
Right. True.
We get to see it. We know that it's there and it's terrifying, and that's part of what makes it so scary, is that we don't see it. But then eventually we do get to see it.
Yeah. True.
It's even more terrifying. Anyway.
Yeah, I was just going to say for Violent Night, I think the movie strikes a really interesting balance between gory, corny, heartfelt, Christmassy. Like such a strange mix. It's like if you've ever had a drink or food, you're like, it's an acquired taste, right? It's not like something it goes down smooth. You kind of like, you have to kind of wrestle with it, and it balances here and there, moving back and forth, but it does it pretty expertly, honestly, to weave through all of that. And the big thing that keeps it on track, and I'll bang this drum till the day I die, is tone. The movie has a consistent tone of what Violent Night is from start to finish. And it maintains that and holds on to it. And it's such an enjoyable film to watch. You can get a little bit of everything out of it. If you want the heartfelt Christmas stuff, there's 5 or 10 minutes of the movie you can watch. If you love watching guys get their head bashed in, there's 30 minutes of the movie you can watch. But if you want that whole gamut, there's not many movies like Violent Night, and deserves praise for doing something different and creative.
It really is a movie for the whole family.
Yeah, your grandparents who were in the war and saw horrible things, and then your kids who like Christmas movies, and people who debate using the word butthole or anus. I mean, it's all there.
I think I don't want to keep hitting the budget thing, but Rare Exports did it with less than $2 million, and I am amazed by that. Absolutely amazed that was possible. So I'm just setting it up so you guys don't get all pissy when I vote at the end.
Vote with us or against
so
us?
You can protect Sunshine's unbeaten streak?
No, you want to look at my notes? I was going to vote this way from the very beginning. I assumed somebody was going to go with Rare Exports because of the cinematography, because sometimes that's all we vote on. So,
okay.
Look, and I'll say too, the fight in the den, the first fight that Santa gets into, is a really great, really well directed scene, and it's a hell of a oneer that is. It's one of those things you have to watch twice if you're a kind of a big film fan, because you watch it first to watch the fight, and then the second time you watch to see how the choreography of the camera is worked into it. And it's a really great one-shot fight scene.
The one where he ends up going out the window and impaling the guy on the thing.
Yeah.
And I will, I'll agree, Kyle. I think you said it the best, that I give due to anybody who finishes a movie. It's not an easy feat. It takes, even low budget or no budget, it's a work of passion for whoever is making it, and for those that have clout in it, and to get it done and get it the way you want it to your best ability, and to add all of the editing and music and everything else. That's a lot for a director to be putting himself out there to tell a story through the way he wants to tell the story, so you see it through their eyes. And so, I mean, between the director, the cinematography, they were shooting in Norway, and it was cold. We've all shot in Iowa cold, and it sucks. Sometimes you walk from the outside to the inside and your lens immediately fogs up and you can't see shit. And that sucks. Imagine trying to do that constantly all the time in a place that is always going to be cold no matter what. And you have to keep your lenses cold. And I mean, there are tips and tricks to do that. So it is an amazing feat. And they got some brilliant shots with that landscape where they were. I feel like there were parts that were, again, that build up without any actual deliverance. We were always on the edge, and they were telling a story, and they were, I guess, trying to keep it somewhat a secret and somewhat not sure. And you were like, well, what is it? What is it? And then when we get there, it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're done. I felt like there was more to it that could have potentially been done, even on a cheap budget. Because I don't care if it's Hollywood style or if it's low budget. I love a ton of low budget movies. I just felt that it wasn't. It's like we're missing part of it. The fight scenes, I would say, were in Violent Night were very well directed. That is a very difficult thing to do. They did not learn how to shoot fight scenes from a Marvel movie, and I appreciate that. So you could actually see what was going on. You knew kind of what the space was. And they're hard to choreograph, and they're, especially with some of the stuff they had going on with the sledgehammer and just all the different things running around. It was pretty impressive. So I won't harp on it. Those were the big ones that I wanted to cover. So
I know I was curious about where the story takes place. That this is that's an actual mountain that they that Santa. I always finished legend is that Santa stands up to listen to prayers from messages from kids. The Finnish Santa Claus would go up there on the top of that mountain and collect the Christmas wishes from children around the world. And it sits right on the border of Russia and Finland. And I don't know, Russians they can get edgy when there's cameras nearby. So I can't imagine how hard it would be to shoot a movie, within a couple of football fields of Russia and move. And it's way north of the Arctic Circle. So yeah, it was really harsh conditions, but sometimes a year, what do you get? You get golden hour all day. So that's cool.
That's
yeah,
true.
no kidding.
This is true.
But knowing that, the fact that was supposed to be that representation, I really think could have added something to the story if they would have delivered that to the viewer, to really set up the story. Because that's a really cool idea that was never even addressed, brought up, or even, anything. And that could have added a lot to the movie.
Well, Andrew, it's 82 minutes, man. They got it,
Okay, I know. I'm sorry.
They can't all be Das Boot.
Okay, yeah.
All right, boys.
Dr.
That's a little bit
Zhivago?
different. This month is a little different in that, yeah, they're a little bit shorter movies.
They are.
We could probably
Definitely.
watch both of them in the time that we watched one for the last episode.
Definitely.
Sure that was by design. I think that was by design.
All right, let's put it to a vote, fellas. Gabe.
I'm gonna go with Violent Night. I thought it was well directed, well choreographed, and well shot.
All right, Andrew.
I'm gonna go for Violent Night, and even though Rare Air Exports did have some neat things and wasn't terrible in the directing category, I am still gonna go with Violent Night though.
All right, Tom.
I'm going with Rare Exports for its small budget, extreme conditions, and beautiful cinematography.
All right.
Oh!
And Kyle.
I have all right, whatever.
Despite the director not getting a very good performance out of John Leguizamo, I'm going to go with Violent Night.
Why do you hate John Leguizamo?
I like John Leguizamo.
Yeah,
Nope.
me too.
Nope. Sorry, we've already started the narrative that you hate John Leguizamo. So welcome
No.
to
This is not a
Gabe,
Gabe.
Denzel. Nope.
Yeah, me
Denzel.
and Denzel. I'll never be able to talk to Denzel because he'll eventually find out.
Oh, yeah,
that I
he
hate
knows.
him.
Yes, he knows.
Yeah, he knows already.
We talk.
I
Yeah,
know.
I've written him several letters.
We talk.
I'm
So,
working on one
yeah.
to John Leguizamo right now.
Dear John Leguizamo,
Dear,
Kyle hates you.
when are you making The Pest 2?
In a 2022 interview, Tommy Wirkola spoke about referencing Home Alone. Obviously, when I was a kid, I loved Home Alone. But as you get older, you think, oh, they would die if you did those things to them. So that was basically the approach to the scene. All right, let's just do the traps very similar to Home Alone, and let's just see what it does to a human being.
Brilliant!
And Rare Exports does not have a lot of trivia, none in the directing category, but it is one of Cate Blanchett's favorite films.
Oh, well, that will give me something to talk to her about when she comes over for dinner tomorrow.
Cool.
Hey,
Tell her I
Kate.
said hi.
It's a cardboard cutout, but you know what I mean.
She just has
What-
dried
what part is
spaghetti
cut out?
stuck to her. Okay, Tom's mom.
She's not
She
on
doesn't-
anymore, man. She turned this off a long time ago.
He really doesn't have a cardboard cutout of Kate Blanchett.
I can't imagine
He
your
ruined
mom on
that.
Twitch.
He ruined that
Did you say
years
Kate
ago. Kate Blanchett. He ruined that years ago when he took it in the shower with him.
Did you say Kate Blanchett or Kate Beckinsale?
Kate Blanchett.
Oh, that's not the one that's coming over.
Oh,
Different Kate.
Different Kate.
Tom's mom. He does have a cardboard cutout of Kate Beckinsale
In leather.
Spared no expense. Spared no expense.
from Underworld.
Underworld, yep.
Yeah, we just talk.
All right. Let's move on to our fourth and final round overall.
Pretty much torn these movies down to their bottom lines from actors for John, less deliverable of a story, but yet quite an accomplishment because it was a small budget film. So it makes it kind of hard to really rehash a lot of stuff. So let's not do that. But we do a lot of times talk about things in this category of music. We also talk about rewatchability. And a lot of times we talk about visual effects. So I'm going to hit first on music. I felt that Violent Night had a good traditional action-packed soundtrack that really moved the scenes along, and found it interesting that even in parts where I would have expected there to be bigger music, there was little or none, maybe to increase the action part of it. In Rare Exports, I don't know if there was any music that directly stood out to me. It all seems pretty basic. Nothing was like, oh wow, that piece was, whew, that blew me away. So, and that just may have been, again, potentially a budget, but it could have just been we didn't want to use a lot of music. There could have been a lot of reasons for that choice. So there's no fault in that. Visual effect wise, there were some pretty neat shots, I would say, in Rare Exports that were a visual effect of some kind, whether it was computer, just pure compositing, or practical, that were pretty impressive. I mean, even at the very end, yes, we've talked about you don't actually get to see Krampus or Santa, whichever it was, come out of the ice block. That was a pretty massive reveal visually to see the giant block and the horns and somewhat of a creature in there. And I'm guessing it was computer generated. I would assume. I don't think it was practical. It didn't feel practical. But that was kind of neat. And then they somehow did the big hole in the mountain because they threw that flare down there. So I'm assuming there was some cut or some off-site shot. I'm not sure how exactly where they got it from, but it paid off really well with that big, huge hole in the top of the mountain. So they did some pretty nice work there. I would say that the biggest problem I had with Rare Exports was they really built up the Santa Krampus character as this supernatural being that had been frozen in the ice, and they dug him up, and it was this big thing. But yet then they just drove a bunch of dynamite into his ice, blew him up, and that was the end of him. He just dies. And I wasn't, the connection of that supernatural being to them just blowing him up with dynamite felt kind of broken. And maybe that's just part of not explaining the story well and getting through that story from A to B to C and filling in all the blanks. Because that felt like a very washed out way of ending it when it came to getting rid of that character that we never saw. So I think that was part of my not enjoying the movie, because it just seemed very weird and broken that was there. Some of the visual effects in Violent Night I thought were pretty cool. When he actually goes and tells the story of his background and sort of the Viking-esque Dark Ages kind of feel. I thought that was a very cool whole scene. Very neat. Obviously there's a ton of visual effects and probably practical effects that are happening during some of those fight scenes that have to be well planned out and careful, and you don't want people getting hurt and yada yada. And I thought they did a really nice job with that. So would I watch Violent Night again? Yes, I've watched it multiple times. This is the first time I've ever seen Rare Exports. I will never watch it again. Next.
Okay. Violent Night is a fun ride. It's very different, feels very different. I think you have to be careful the audience you show it to around Christmas. But there are some people you're going to show it to, they're going to think, wow, this is a really dope movie. It's a lot of fun. It's very different. Can't take it too seriously for sure. It's gorier than Die Hard, but maybe not as earnest, I guess, or grounded in reality, which says a little bit about Die Hard. But it's well positioned among the Christmas action film genre, and is a movie I would definitely watch again. I have seen it once before. I saw it in the theater with my wife, and we were the only two people in the theater, and we were literally laughing out loud to ourselves watching it, because it's enjoyable. But you have to surrender yourself to the movie. Don't think too hard about it. And the movie does a great job doing that, because whenever anything weird happens, David Harbour's there to just kind of look and go, I don't really get how it works. And you believe him. You buy it. It works, right? First time I ever saw Rare Exports, kind of a movie I've heard bandied about from time to time, is like a Christmas horror action film. And I thought it was going to be much more horror and a little more Christmas and much more action. And it's really just kind of boring and bland and unfinished. It would have been a pretty cool short story. It doesn't need to be an hour and 22 minutes long. And it shouldn't feel... What was that? It shouldn't feel...
Tom is shredding his Kate Beckinsale.
Oh my god! Okay. An hour and 20-minute movie shouldn't feel like 2 hours when a 2-hour movie feels like an hour and a half. You got the reverse idea going on there, and I think that's the cardinal sin of a movie, is to be boring. So yeah, I think it's boring, and I'm with Andrew. I will never watch it again. And so moving on.
I love Violent Night, and it's interesting because I think like when it came out last Christmas, it didn't do particularly very well, and people, the reviews weren't great on it or anything else, but the IMDb rating is constantly climbing ever since last year, and now it's up higher than Rare Exports, and I think when people first saw it, I don't think they really knew what to make of it. And now that they kind of understand what was going, like what the purpose of this movie is, that it's a Christmas send up and it's over the top and it's absolutely ridiculous and it references a bunch of the movies that you love, I think people are starting to understand it more and appreciate it for what it really is, and are learning to love John Leguizamo's performance in it. So. I do think, and this was, this episode that we did was 2 years ago, but when we did Fat Man and Krampus, I do feel like Krampus and Rare Exports would have made a better match, and then Fat Man and Violent Night would have been a really good, two really good Christmas spots. But of course, Violent Night wasn't out yet. But
right.
But I liked both these movies. Rare Exports was actually kind of a surprise. I think I texted you guys right before I started it, and I said, that it better be really good because Violent Night was so much fun, and I was pleasantly surprised with what they did with the limited resources that they had. But this is, and I think the director went on, he did Iron Sky, I think, or maybe just the cinematographer, but they've gone on to do other stuff, bigger and better films, and it's I don't know. It's hard not to be impressed with what they did, but Violent Night is so much fun. It's so much fun. I will definitely watch it again this Christmas season. So,
but Iron Sky it's a much better, again, low budget film. But I found Iron Sky to be much more fun than Rare Exports.
Yeah, but I mean, Iron Sky it's ridiculous. I mean,
yes, it is.
Nazis on the other side of the moon, but yeah, and Rare Exports takes itself pretty seriously.
I would agree.
Which is funny because it's not really an action film. It's not really a horror film. It's kind of this wanders in this unknown genre of Finnish Christmas thriller.
So specific.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to say about Violent Night is there are a lot of really fun kills in it, and that sounds really awful and maybe the only kind of thing like an American audience might say, but there's some really fun kills in it, like when the guy gets the Christmas star in his eye, but it doesn't end there. He plugs it in and it sparks and it starts the guy's head on fire. And it's like, oh, that's one of those moments that I laughed out loud in the basement all by myself while I was watching this, because I'm sure Jill would had no interested in seeing this. And then there are just a lot of fun kills in this movie, which, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I enjoyed it. It made me watching these people die in such horrible ways brought me joy. I don't know.
And it's weird because we talked about this a lot, I think, in the last 2 years, but and I didn't really, John Wick just didn't do it for me because I just like the violence for violence sake for some reason just didn't do it. But there's a Looney Tunes nature to Violent Night, or itchy and scratchy feeling to it, that it's for some reason it's a lot easier to stomach when it's so ridiculous and silly.
Well, and I thought they made good use of Christmas decorations and those kinds of things for the kills too. It wasn't just weapons like a gun or a knife or whatever. I mean, they made use of Christmas themed things to do a lot of these kills.
Yeah.
And so
I think that's a good way to put it. Very almost Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
Although,
nowadays, if you go back to the Looney Tunes and watch some of those, they're not quite.
Oh,
I know. And they're not
quite.
They're
so racist.
You won't have the same feeling. For some of them, you won't have the same feeling that you used to. But anyway, because they are pretty violent, actually, in some ways. But cartoonish, obviously. And then one thing I felt like they left out of Violent Night, they showed his past and they showed how he was a violent man and, could kill 3 people at once with his hammer and all this kind of stuff. But they didn't really hint at how or why he became Santa Claus. They didn't really. That's one thing I felt was kind of missing. It's like, okay, so he was this violent man, but how did he become Santa Claus? There was something that led him to that, whether it was his own regret for being such a violent man or some sort of event where they kind of gave him a chance at redemption, or how did he become Santa Claus? Was that in there? Did I miss it?
They're saving it for Violent Night too.
Maybe
they should do a prequel called Violent Night with a K.
Violent Night. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like it.
I kind of sometimes think though that not always filling in all the blanks and letting the audience decide.
Yeah, but that's a pretty important one, I think.
I don't.
For me, that that one was pretty important, because I thought it was interesting that they brought up his violent past. I thought, oh, that's interesting. We're going to get to see into his past. Well, there had to be some transition in there between his violent nature and all of a sudden caring about kids and bringing them gifts and being a good man. What was that transition? And I felt like that was a pretty important one that I didn't.
I've watched this 4 times and that thought has never crossed my mind.
Yeah,
No.
I don't.
It should have, because that's totally what's missing. No, how did he become Santa Claus? Yeah, absolutely, that's what's missing. That's the only thing in that story that's missing.
David Harbour
doesn't understand it. I get it, but he understands how he became Santa Claus. He didn't.
I think he's gonna be like, I don't know. I just woke up one day and I had
maybe
a bunch of elves.
Okay, if you want to go with this whole let's not explain it thing, okay, fine. He got knocked out in a battle and he woke up as Santa Claus, but that's still telling us how that transition happened. Maybe he doesn't understand it, but I think we should as viewers.
I don't get it.
Yeah. No.
I'm going to vote against Violent Night because Gabe's pissed me off.
Yep. I'm right.
It'd be great to see how he became Santa Claus in like the way the first Santa Claus with Tim Allen happens. Maybe he raids a village and accidentally kills the real Santa Claus, and now he has to do it, or there'll be no Christmas.
The powers transfer to him because he murdered the real Santa Claus. One thing I wanted to know about Rare Exports is before they blow up Santa Claus in the ice, they collect his horns. Yeah, they throw at least one of them.
Yeah, they're on the truck. They're on the truck when they're driving away.
What happens to the horns?
You got to sell it. They're looking for money, man.
Yeah, they were selling it.
Is that what they were going to do? Because I don't think we ever see what really happens to them. We know that
slave traders. They're also poachers.
Yeah,
they are. The wolf traps are illegal.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, he starts off.
And who knows if the hunting of those reindeer was legal? I don't know. They rely on that, but nobody ever said it was legal.
Still don't understand how the pen would work. Are 30,000 reindeer just going to run into the pen because you tell them to? Don't understand that. Looks like a really small opening.
That's what he said.
It's like the TARDIS. Mom. It's bigger on the inside.
All right, let's
to the point where you were talking about using decorations violently. The scene where he's sneaking up on Sugar Plum, and he takes the garland. He takes the tinsel off the sofa table, and I'm like, that ain't gonna work. That shit's weak. And of course, it never gets to it. I'm like, oh well, there you go, good choice, because that you weren't gonna strangle her with that. You were gonna like tickle her neck, and she was gonna like kill you.
Just so you know, Gabe, there are some references to Nordic folklore about Santa Claus. So they just kind of made him a Viking in the movie. So there's Nordic folklore of a Santa Claus type character, and in David Harbour's name, I saw this in the trivia, is in the movie is something red, something the red. And the fact is also Santa Claus never really wore a red coat. It was always green before Coca-Cola took it and changed it to red.
Correct.
Marketing. So I just want to point out too, I really enjoyed the music in Violent Night. It felt very Christmassy, and I think that helped the story so much more because it felt like you were watching a Christmas movie when you were listening to the music, which you are. It's just kind of bent and distorted, and it made me enjoy the film more because of the music. And it's very subtle. Yes. And I'm not saying it's John Williams, up here, but it really helped sell the movie.
Is this like a new genre per se? Are we going with like holiday action or
holiday action,
Christmas action?
Yeah. Could. You could. All right, let's vote. Andrew. I mean, I already know this one. Never mind. But
are you
just tell
sure
me.
you don't want to ask me?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this was a really tough decision.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Violent Night because Violent Night kicks the shit out of Rare Exports.
Tom.
I agree. It kicks the shit out of Rare Exports, except in the field of directing and cinematography.
Kyle.
Only because you voted that way.
Yeah. I believe what I believe. Am I not entitled to my opinion?
Kyle.
I will go with Violent Night.
All right. And Gabe.
Yeah, this is going to end up being kind of a lopsided episode, but yeah, Violent Night for me too.
All right.
And I will say, Tom, there have been times when you have been very pressure to us about how dumb we are because we didn't vote for the movie you wanted. So you know what? Yeah.
No, that's fine. I mean, I seriously had these 4 votes lined up before I sat down with you gentlemen tonight. So I don't want you to think that I was like, oh, I better give one to save Sunshine. I don't care. My debt to Danny Boyle has been paid off, so don't worry about it.
So
I think as long as those checks keep clearing, you're still voting once an episode.
So what you're saying is you gave it the amount of votes that the amount of sunshine there is in Norway during that time of year.
No, that would be like 1/10 of a vote.
Right. The logo on the catering company van in Violent Night is called Farkas and Dill, after the bullies in A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Excellent.
There are also, besides Die Hard and Home Alone, there are also other references. And the second I saw it, I was like, oh my God, they even go into Die Hard 2 territory.
There's tons of Die Hard 2 in this.
Right, with the guys riding the snowmobiles coming in. You think the cavalry's coming. It's the bad guys.
Yep.
And then the icicle to the eye.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, it really reminded me of the fake commercial in Scrooged when Lee Majors is helping Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus out, and they're all like heavily armed. And that was great. And of course, we talked about Bad Santa. And I mean, anyone that has watched the movies recognize all the code names for the villains in the film, which are great because they just pulled everything in. So yeah, that's the trivia. I mean, there's not a lot for Rare Exports, and Violent Night is mostly kind of the trivia about the homages that they make to all the other Christmas films, which I think is great, which also makes it feel more like a Christmas movie.
Now, Tommy Wirkola has said that they're working on 2, Violent Night 2, so with David Harbour, and have not ruled out John Leguizamo coming back. And that's I know that in spite of everything that's been said tonight, you think that that's a joke, but John Leguizamo has said that he would love to come back in some form, and he's Scrooge, so he can come back as the ghost of Scrooge. So.
Oh my God, that would be great. That would be awesome if he came back
I
as
guess
the
he
ghost
got-
of Scrooge.
Yeah. He got kind of torn apart in that chimney, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they said there's a lot of Christmas stuff they never even touched on. They never did North Pole or
That's
Elves
true.
or Mrs. Claus.
Yeah.
And they want to bring even more Christmas lore and more Christmas movies into it. So
I hope so. But yeah, for me, the chemistry between him and the little girl, it really helped this movie. Like, really solidified it for me.
100%.
Yeah. I thought the director, the actors did a great job of getting that chemistry. Also, I may be on a watch list because when Tom said 13-year-old Finnish films, I was like, oh, I'll go on and see what other Finnish films went on back in 2010. Instead of putting 2010 Finnish films, I put 13-year-old Finnish films. Luckily, nothing came up. Nothing came up that was horrible.
Well, there goes Mike's web history.
I instantly he started typing in only 2010 finish films.
Your ads are going to get really weird.
Oh, they're going to get really bad. So let's move on to our recommendations for this month, and we will start with you, Tom.
Right. So I checked. I'm pretty sure I haven't recommended this one before, but I'm going with a Christmas movie. I'm going to go with the 1994 Ted Denny Christmas classic, The Ref, with Dennis Leary and unfortunately also Kevin Spacey and Judy Davis. And the three of them are it is a black comedy about a couple on the verge of divorce, and Dennis Leary plays a cat burglar that comes in to rob them and winds up actually probably being the victim, being stuck with these two giant assholes. It's incredibly funny, and it has a little bit of heart to it, and it's Dennis Leary being Dennis Leary, and you should definitely, I think, check it out. Ref.
Fantastic pick.
Thank you,
Kyle.
I am going to go completely the opposite way. I'm going to recommend a horror film I just watched, and that is called...
How do you spell that?
Name now.
Yeah, that sounds really scary.
Sorry,
It sounds foreign as well.
it's Hungarian.
I had
Also-
to think of the exact name. I didn't want to get it wrong.
Also, Tom,
it's called-
we did discuss The Ref. That was one of our episodes.
yes.
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 Oh, I
Went
meant.
against
You know
mixed
what?
nuts.
I only checked recommendations.
Ah,
I did not look to see if we'd done the film.
Kyle.
That's why it gets a yellow highlighting on our recommendation sheet, because it has been recommended before or after we cover it on the show.
But
Anyways, I am going to recommend a horror/alien invasion film called No One Will Save You on Hulu. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil much of it. I was told not to kind of go into it raw and enjoy it, and I'm going to give you all the same advice. So if that sounds interesting to you, you should check it out. It's really good.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Gabe.
Well, we had to play a little bit of rock, paper, scissors for this one because I think more than one of us were considering recommending this. I'm going to recommend a movie that was directed by the same director as Rare Exports and has some of the same actors in it. And it's a recent movie called Sisu. And it's about a guy who's out digging for gold around, I think, the end of World War II. And he encounters some Nazis who try to take it from him. And he doesn't take very kindly to that. And it's the same. It's the dad. The actor is the dad from Rare Exports, Jorma Tomila. And he's actually really good in it. And it's kind of like if you took John Wick and made him an old man and then transported him back to 1944 or whatever, 42 or 44 or whatever it was set in, then that's what you get. You get John Wick in World War II, basically. And it's very over the top at points. A lot of implausible things kind of happen. But man, is it really entertaining. And talk about some good kills. There's some good kills in this one, too. And what they did is they had a slightly larger budget than Rare Exports. Maybe about 3 times, but 3 times of very little is still very little. And they did a lot more with it. And the cinematography, we talked about the cinematography in Rare Exports as being beautiful. The cinematography in this movie is just gorgeous. There are these scenes that are just beautiful, and they're beautiful even in the times when it's like gory and ugly. It's like this is a burned out building, but man, look how beautiful it is. And the performances are interesting too, especially for the main character, because it's in many ways it's very understated, and he has almost no dialogue. Speaks barely a word through the whole movie, but it totally works. And that's one of the things that I love. One of the things I like about certain movies is like, show it, don't tell it. And if we don't need dialogue, don't have dialogue. If you don't need to explain it, don't explain it. Just let it happen. Let us see it. We'll figure it out. And they do a lot of that in this. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I think even those of you who did not like Rare Exports, I think you would really actually enjoy Sisu quite a bit. So there were just a couple other things I wanted to mention really quick. This is how people have described it. He has a dog in the movie, and they say, "Don't F with people's furry buddies. Bad things happen," which is kind of like John Wick and other movies where you mess with their dog, you're in trouble. And then another one, and I thought this was very appropriate. It has the feel of John Wick, but also kind of a Tarantino movie. And it says Sisu is like if Tarantino made a movie in Finland with little money, and that's what it feels like. So anyway,
after like Sisu and Rare Exports, Chalmari Helander, the director, I would not want to be his next door neighbor, because like the people move into the mountain and start blasting, and then the Nazis come in and start getting the gold at Sisu. Like he's got to be like the most paranoid neighbor that could live next to you. Like, did you take my grill? Like, I didn't take your grill, man. Like, fuck, I think you took my grill. He's gonna come running after you.
Is your dog pooping on my lawn? That's not my my poop.
That's not my poop.
It's not my poop. I don't even have a dog. All right.
Yeah, it's actually really.
I don't know.
So, Gabe, just
it's
so
really
you know,
good.
I was messing with you when I said it was going to be mine too.
Yeah.
In our text thread. So
I don't want to give away too much because I know you guys haven't seen it yet. But I do think even those of you who didn't like Rare Exports would enjoy this quite a bit. It's a step up. You can tell there's more of a budget. The cinematography is even better than before, and the performances are good. I think you guys will really enjoy it.
All right. Thank you, Gabe. Andrew.
I'm going to actually go with a Christmas movie that is probably most off the wall from anything we just watched tonight, but is one of my, I guess, Christmas rotational movies that I like. It's got Bill Nighy, Hugh Laurie, James McAvoy in it, Jim Broadbent, and that is Arthur Christmas. It's the Aardman Studios, so it has the same kind of stop-motion animation, claymation feel to it, and it's basically about Arthur Claus, who is Santa's misfit son, and he uses technology to help Santa Claus deliver all of the presents to the children across the 6 million children across the world. So it's a pretty cute movie. It's very funny, great comedy, and if you like the Aardman animation kind of movies, you will love this. So,
all right, thank you, Andrew. Mine is not a Christmas movie, but it did come out in December. And before I say what movie it is, this movie was made for $15 million. And I will say this, any of you having issues making a good movie at twice that number or even at $200 million, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Godzilla -1. Like, it just threw me back in my seat. It is a war drama with a disaster movie, and that disaster just happens to be this giant lizard. It is directed by and written by, and also the special effects supervision by Takashi Yamakaze. It stars Minami Hambe, and I'm not going to even try because I will butcher the rest of their names. But the actors, the two main actors in the film sell the movie. Like, they are wonderful together. The visual effects are outstanding, and still $15 million compared to some of these movies like The Flash. You know, you've seen some of the bad CGI out of that. And that movie was what, $200-300 million to make. And you look at this Godzilla -1, and it's the incredible difference for the small amount. Well, I shouldn't say small amount of money, but the smaller amount of money. Godzilla is pure nightmare fuel in this movie. And I don't want to give anything away, but his atomic breath is atomic when it hits. So if you like Godzilla movies, if you like disaster films, and if you like kind of a war drama, that's this movie. And it's really well done. So check out Godzilla -1. I imagine it's only going to be in theaters for a little while longer before it gets released on video, at least here in the States. But it's something you want to see on the big screen.
He wrote it, directed it, and was the visual effects supervisor.
That is correct.
That's impressive.
That is correct. And I just, man.
Wow.
Like, it is not your typical, it's like when Shin Godzilla came out, everyone was like, oh, this is great. You know, it's a metaphor for, red tape in government and the Fukushima tragedy. And this is just, it's about Japan trying to rebuild itself after a war and the main character is a failed kamikaze pilot. And so that already brings in a magnitude of baggage, right? And yeah, it's really well done. All right. Let's poke the monkey, find out who won.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Violent!
A lot of times we watch two movies and one just happens to be the loser because we like the other one much better. It means it's, doesn't mean it's a bad movie, but I would say in this case, the right movie won for sure.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I don't.
Quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, Violent is definitely the better movie. So.
Yep. And way more entertaining. Way more entertaining. All right. Please leave us.
I will.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I bet I would not be surprised if Violent Night 2 has a Rare Exports Easter egg in it somewhere. I think it's the kind of movie. It's the kind of movie that Tom Mercola would sneak a little something in there. So
mark this down. December 6th, 2023. Put your money on it.
There you go.
Tom called it. Please leave us a review on whatever podcasting service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. If you like us, tell your friends. If you hate us, tell your enemies. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. If you want to listen to an unedited version of the show when we are doing it live, you can catch us on Twitch whenever we record an episode. Our January bout will see two great 80s investigators attempt to win the belt as Fletch takes on Beverly Hills Cop. For Andrew, Tom, Kyle, Gabe, our monkey, Ron, and myself, thanks for listening, and go to catch a flick.
Everybody thinks I'm suicidal, in which case I'm fucked and nobody wants to work with me. Or they think I'm faking to draw a psycho pension, in which case I'm fucked and nobody wants to work with me. Basically, I'm fucked.
Who are you, then?
Just a fly in the ointment, Hans. A monkey in the wrench. A pain in the ass.
You ever met anybody you didn't kill?
Well, I haven't killed you yet.
Just another American saw too many movies as a child.
Endo here has forgotten more about dispensing pain than you and I will ever know.
Another orphan of a bankrupt culture, John Wayne. Rambo, Marshall Dillon.
You know why I don't do it? This is gonna make you laugh. You know why I don't do it? The job.
I was always kind of partial to Roy Rogers, actually. I really like those sequin shirts.
Let's do what one shepherd said to the other shepherd. What? Let's get the flock out of here.
Welcome to the party, pal!
Where the hell did you get him? Psychos or us?
Sorry, Hans, wrong guess.
I suppose we have to register you as the lethal weapon. Now I have a machine gun.
Now, that's a real badge. I'm a real cop, and this is a real fucking gun.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
What do you do, sleep with that thing on your pillow?
So what if I slept?
Come to the coast, we get together, have a few laughs.
That's pretty fucking thin.
That's very thin.
Gonna need some more FBI guys, I guess. What the hell thin's my middle name?
Your wife's cooking. I'm not surprised.
Oh my god, the quarterback is toast!
Now I can read you guys your rights, but nah, you guys already know what your rights are.
This channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
Oh fucking shit, lady! Do I sound like I'm ordering a pizza?
Do you really want to jump? Do you want to?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
I don't know who the hell you think you are or what you're doing, but you just destroyed a building.
I'm too old for this shit. Tell me you got that.
I got it.
And from all of us here at Cinesmack, happy holidays!
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. Everybody needs some variety in life. That's what I love about Chumba Casino. They know how to keep things fresh and exciting. All their games are free to play, like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire. You can claim free daily login bonuses, too. And they release new games every week. So spice things up with ChumbaCasino.com now for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.